All right. So we are in or on chapter 3, additional government influence. So, as we all know, with governmental influence, basically, like we talked a lot about finance, we talked about the applications and how things basically are affected by finance, by outside forces, many different things that we're talking about every single day. Okay. But one of the key ones that is consistently going over and creating financial matters comes to this governmental influence. Okay, governmental influence, you're going to have different departments. You're going to have the Department of Housing and Urban Development, which is HUD. You're going to have the federal legislation, the state and local financing agencies, and the agricultural lending aspect. Okay, so of course we know what HUD is. HUD, of course, is your Department of Housing and Urban Development. If you're going to be a real estate agent, you will hear that word a lot. A person has a HUD voucher. Okay, and what that basically means is that that individual is low income, does not have the funds or the money in regards to purchasing. They don't have the money. For example, go back to Aiden. I'm gonna pick on him here. Aiden goes over. He's a basically a single dad. He's got a kid, and he ends up he can't pay for rent. He's unable to pay for rent. He makes say 1,000 a month, and that's all he makes. Okay, and the cheapest apartment that he can find or place that he can find is guess what? It's 1,000 a month. So we can't have Aiden with a single child trying to pay rent but can't pay for food, can't pay for transportation, can't do this. So the government utilizes HUD where he can apply for assistance, governmental assistance, and the government will pay a portion of his lease. Okay, so the government comes in and says, Aiden, you're going to go over and we're going to give you $500 a month in regards to your rent. Now the thing is that they don't give it to Aiden. Okay, they give it to the landlord. So if you're renting from Mr. Eugene here, the government cuts the check to Mr. Eugene. Okay, but you still have to pay 500 to Mr. Eugene because you're still paying him 1,000 a month, but you still have to pay your portion. The government pays theirs. Okay. Now here's the problem. Aiden, of course, is going to pay in regards to the situation where he's going to end up paying up front his 500. And he most likely, a lot of times with HUD vouchers, Aiden will pay you. Aiden's the one that's paying all the time. But guess who's not paying? The government. Because the government's always behind or something's going on. So Mr. Eugene, January 1st of 2021, Aiden was to pay you 500. Government pays you 500. Well, guess how much you got? You got Aiden's 500, and here's the government sitting over here going, yeah, well, we're in an economic crisis, so there's nothing we can do. Good luck. We'll cut you a check, Mr. Eugene, as soon as we can. Okay? Well, here's the thing. Mr. Eugene is going to do what? Going to go after Aiden. Where's my money? Where's my money? Where's my money? And Aiden's going to say, well, I don't know. You need to call HUD. You need to call this. You need to call that. You need to. Well, Aiden, do you think that you can end up, that you can go over and force the government to jump and give Mr. Eugene his note or Mr. Eugene his money?
No.
No. You wish you could. I wish we all could, right?
Yeah.
So in that situation is, Aiden is not going to be able to, in that particular situation, get the government to pay Mr. Eugene any faster than it already is. Okay? Mr. Eugene in that situation, he's going to be very irritated. Okay? And eventually Mr. Eugene may end up evicting Aiden, even though Aiden has been paying. Aiden has been paying his 500. The government's not doing theirs. Now here's Aiden. He's up a creek without a fight. Okay? He's kind of in a situation where he's stuck. Okay? So what happens in this particular situation is that we have to understand that HUD vouchers, a lot of times people give people that are on HUD a very bad name, and it's not their fault. It's not. They actually may be responsible people that are paying their debt, but the government is not paying enough in time, which causes, guess what, that person to get kicked out. Okay? Been in this industry a while, and I've dealt with HUD vouchers. And I can tell you, I've seen it. Government ends up, does not pay landlord. Landlord calls me, what do? You got to evict them. Well, they're paying, they are still responsible on the lease to pay you. That's their job. So it is Aiden's duty to be down there at the governmental office. Where y'all at? Where's the money? I need it. That's Aiden's job. But the problem is if Aiden is working a job and he's making $1,000 a month, does Aiden have time to go down between 8 and 5 to make certain that they're paying Mr. Eugene? No, they don't, because he's working his job. Okay, so it really puts Aiden in a catch-22, and eventually Aiden, guess what, gets kicked out of his property. Okay, he's evicted. So again, that's one of the governmental influences. The government can influence real estate in many different ways. If they don't pay on time, they can end up causing mass evictions. Okay, they can end up causing a lot of headaches. Also, if they don't pay, guess what? If your note, Mr. Eugene, on that house is $750 a month, Aiden's supposed to pay you $1,000, you're only getting $500. Not only is the government screwing Aiden here, but how are you going to pay your mortgage? You can't. So now it's a double whammy. Okay, puts Aiden in a bad situation, puts Mr. Eugene in a bad situation. Okay, so in that situation, comes back to the additional governmental influence is based upon the Department of Housing and Urban Development. We'll talk about HUD a lot throughout these courses. Federal legislation, okay? A lot of times there's going to be changes. There's constantly changes. Today is a big day. We have a different president, new administration. Previous administration ran things their way. Today, completely different administration. There's already executive orders and all that are going into place. With that being said, what happens is with the federal legislation, there's going to be changes, major changes, okay? So like I tell people this all the time, yes, we elect a president every 4 years, but what a lot of people don't understand is this, is every 4 years things change, okay? That's why one thing you got to love about our business is that we're constantly changing every single day. Real estate is always changing. We're about to have a mass review in regards to how we're going to end up, how we're going to turn around and have basically the debt, how we're going to face our governmental debt that we have. That's going to be dealt with in federal legislation. State and local financing agencies, okay? State and local financing agencies also have their own rules and regulations, okay? These local ones have the greatest impact on all of us, okay? They have the greatest impact because the fact is that they come in and they can basically set standards in regards to what we deal with in our daily life, okay? And then you have the agricultural lending, okay? There are certain types of loans. Understand, if you want to buy land, you're not going to be able to go. I can just tell you this. If you want to buy raw land, you can't just go down to Chase, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, and say, I want to buy some land. Okay? Most of them will not touch it. The reason why is this. Land fluctuates a lot. A lot. Okay? Land goes up, land goes down. Land goes up, land goes down. Okay? In the values. So again, when we're dealing with agricultural lending, we have to understand that there are different ways in regards to how we deal with our agricultural lending policies. So let's jump back over here to HUD. Let's talk about HUD real quick. Now HUD, of course, basically deals with FHA, Ginnie Mae, the CDBG and housing vouchers, and their fair housing enforcement. Now understand with each and every one of these, they are completely different, okay? Each of these are different organizing organizations, okay? As you can see here, the CDBG and housing vouchers is what I was talking about earlier. FHA, they have their own lending requirements. Ginnie Mae, they also have lending requirements in regards to purchasing. Okay, fair housing enforcement. All of these in these situations are different types of activities that are utilized when we are looking at it from the overall perspective of HUD. Okay, HUD is the main member that deals with most of the activities. Now understand that there is always constant change in regards to who manages who. Okay, and that's one thing that I'll tell you just from time being is there can be changes that do occur. There can be changes that we end up where HUD may no longer end up with an administration. There's a change of an administration. Change of an administration, they could get rid of HUD. They can move HUD around. They can shuffle it. Okay? There's always changes. So whenever you change a governmental agency, things can have different ways of how they're viewed. Okay? Now, the supervision of HUD. Now, of course, understand in this situation, you have the Neighborhood Stabilization Program, the NSP, the Home or Hope for Homeowners, the Housing Choice Voucher Program, that's formerly called Section 8, the Native American Indian Housing, the Good Neighbor Next Door Program, one of my favorite programs. I'm actually going to go into this one for a minute. The Good Neighbor Next Door Program is one of my favorite programs. Okay? Reason being is, if you're a police officer, you're a nurse, or a teacher. Now, I'm not talking about professor, college professors. We unfortunately don't get this part of the deal. But if you are a teacher, a K through 12 teacher, you're a police officer, or a nurse, what ends up happening in that situation is you can buy certain properties off HUD's website at a discount. Okay?
Does that include medical or no?
So, well, I'm actually going to show y'all something. I want to bring this up real quick here. And this is actually something that y'all actually like to see. Because you may have family members that are teachers, doctors, or police officers, or nurses. Okay? It'll load. Again, it's a governmental website, so it's going to take a while. Okay? So
Can I ask a question?
Yes, Ms. Linda White Floating.
When you say police officers, etc.
Yes, ma'am.
If they work in like how can I say it? They work in the police department, but as a secretarial or something like that, is that in the same category, or is that something different?
So say that one more time.
Say
If it's a secretary instead of
If it's a secretary, no.
working for the.
No.
Government issue. Okay.
No.
Okay.
We can actually, let me pull up. Pull this up real quick. So this is the HUD Good Neighbor Next Door program. It'll pull up again. It's pulling off of the main site, and there seems to be a bunch of people on it. Here are your requirements right here. It'll load. Of course, it's not going to load. Here we go. All right, so who may participate in the Good Neighbor Next Door? If you're a law enforcement personnel, so this is a person who qualifies as a law enforcement officer for the purposes of the sales program. It's going to be a person that is employed full-time by a law enforcement agency of a federal government state. So Ms. Linda, yes to your question. They would qualify. They used to not, but they now can.
Good.
Okay? So in this situation, if you're an employed individual full-time, you have to be full-time,
Yes.
by a law enforcement agency of the federal government, a state, a unit of general or local government, or an Indian tribal government. In carrying out such full-time employment, the person is sworn to uphold and make arrests for violations of federal, state, tribal, township, or municipal laws, and the full-time employee is in paragraph A of this section, must, in the normal course of business, directly serve the locality in which the home is located. So a police officer or an individual that works within the law enforcement agency, so long as, you gotta look here, you gotta look at B, they're carrying out such full-time employment that the person is sworn to uphold and make arrests for violations. So the individual, so long as they are sworn in, can actually end up applying for this program. Okay. Another one. If you look here at teachers, okay, a person qualifies as a teacher for the purpose of the sales program if the person is employed as a full-time teacher by a state-accredited public school or private school that provides direct services to students in grades pre-K through 12. And the full-time employment in paragraph A of this section must, in the normal course of business, serve students from the locality in which the home is located. Unfortunately, people like me, who's a professor, don't qualify. Okay? And then, down here at the bottom, if you are a person that qualifies as a firefighter or emergency medical technician, EMT, for the purposes of the sales program, if the person is employed full-time as a firefighter or emergency medical technician by a fire department or emergency medical service responder unit by the federal government, state or local government or Indian tribal government, and the full-time employment in paragraph A of this section must, in the normal course of business, directly serve the locality where the home is located. Okay? Sir?
What if I dreamt of being a
No,
firefighter?
can't be, no dreams, gotta be real.
Oh my God, he did not
And
deserve that.
Mr. Travis is the one that enforces all the rules, so you have to get through Mr. Travis.
Oh my
So,
God, for your day.
so, but no, in this particular situation, what happens is that these are the three people or careers that can participate in this situation. Now, here's the best part about it. This is what I love all the time about it. Let's go back here. What happens is, so you check your listings in your state, you follow the instructions, blah, 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 blah. HUD requires that you sign a second mortgage note, mortgage and note for the discounted amount. No interest repayments are required in what's called the silent second, provided that you fulfill your 3-year occupancy. So what happens is I'm going to go here. It's going to lead me here. I can go to HUD, okay? And what happens is in this particular situation, if I wanted to do Harris County and in Texas, I can hit search. And currently there are no homes that are available in Harris County. So we're just going to do a search of Texas. All right. So there's a lot of properties here that you can see. There's Harrisburg, Texas. There's Bell County for Killeen. There is Waco. There's many different properties. Base them off of basically search. There's one here in Ellis County, Taylor County. There's a couple of them in here, Chambers, Uvalde. There's a bunch of different properties in here. But here's what happens. Say, for example, that Miss Leela, she was a nurse, and she lived, this is the key thing, she has to reside or work within the county in which the property is located. So she can't live in Harris and buy this property. She has to actually reside in the area in which she's working. Okay? So Miss Leela comes in, and Miss Leela wants to purchase this property. Now here's the most interesting thing. Miss Leela, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
All right, Miss Leela, I got a question for you. So this house that's currently on the market here, if you look here on the slide, it shows its list price for $440,000. Okay? Miss Leela, what would you do if I told you that, Miss Leela, you go and you basically can buy this house for half price, but here's the thing. Within 3 years, you have to reside in this house for 3 years, and during that 3 years, you have to make the house look presentable again. You got to make it look nice again. Would you live in this house for 3 years to get it half off of the price and put some time into it?
Of course.
Of course, right? So that's what ends up happening with this, is in these situations, is that you can go in, if you're one of these three careers, you can go in and if you move into the property and you reside for 3 years, you only pay half of whatever your note is. And the government pays the remainder.
And you only have to live in the house.
You
for
only
3
have to
years.
live in the house for 3 years.
And you can sell it after that?
No, you cannot sell it. You got to keep it for the term of your loan. Okay? So you got to keep it for the term of your loan, but you could rent it out and make money off of it while you're ending up buying another house somewhere else. Now, how interesting is that? Pretty
So you can rent the property.
After,
You don't have to live after the 3 years. You don't have to live in the property. Is that right?
That is correct, Miss Leland. So
Yeah.
after 3 years, Miss Leland, when you finish, say you got in the property and you fixed it up and you painted it and you made it look nice, you made the curb appeal look nice, and you lived there for 3 years as your main residence. On the 4th year, you can put it up for lease, not for sale, but for lease, and you can move somebody in there and charge, say, $2,000 to $3,000 a month in this house, and you can move back to Harris County, and you could continue your job there and make money off of that house. Pretty simple job, right? So in that situation is that you have that opportunity in this house or in any houses to go in, and the whole purpose of this was this. The reason that they want, and this is the whole concept behind it, the reason they only want teachers or medical personnel or police officers is for this reason. These properties are normally located in what type of environment, do you think? In a very high scale
No.
or a low scale environment?
Low scale.
Why do you say low scale?
Because people normally don't, people like that normally don't buy a house.
Well, you're basically people at this price point, excluding this one, most people at that price point, they're more a low income.
Right.
So they want to try to revitalize an area.
Right.
And if it's a high crime area and we move a police officer in there, what's going to happen to that area?
It's gonna calm down.
That area might calm down. And if that police officer cleans up their neighborhood and all of that, guess what happens?
Goes up.
Values go up and people start getting away. Okay? Same thing like with medical personnel. If there's a shooting in that area, if a nurse is there, an EMT, they can most likely help those people survive. Okay? So again, extremely important that you understand this. But the Good Neighbor Next Door program is a huge incentive for real estate agents that they don't use. Guys and gals, I can tell you right now, you go talk to almost any real estate agent that's been around, unless they've been in it for about, say, 10 years, any newer agent, if I walked up and I said to a newer agent, hey, Aiden, what's the Good Neighbor Next Door program? What's that? If you hadn't sat here today, what would you have said?
I don't know.
I don't have no idea what you're talking about.
There is one.
Yeah, a lot of people have no idea. Yeah.
There you go.
See, here's one thing that I tell people all the time is, imagine if I went over and I did some flyers. And in my flyers, I sent out flyers to everybody. And I said, hey, if you're a police officer, a nurse, an EMT, fire department, or a teacher, contact me to learn how you can purchase a house for half off. What do you think's going to happen to your phone, Travis, if you send that out? Yeah. You're going to have your phone just blowing up. How do I do that? How do I do that? How do I do that? Okay. There are ways to market yourself. Because let me tell you something. Miss Linda's already got her, I see them up there, them what do you call that? Her gears are going right now. They're working. They're turning right now. Okay. So what's happening here is she knows of a friend that works for a police department.
Yep.
And she knows of somebody that they are needing a house.
Yep.
And as I'm talking to her, those gears are turning because she's like, man, I need to sit down and look at this stuff and see what we can find. Okay. There are benefits to these situations. Okay. Now, a lot of people may say, for example, they may say Miss Leela decided today, Aiden, for example, Miss Leela comes to you and says, well, Aiden, I'm not a nurse, I'm not a police officer, I'm not any of those things, but I would like to buy this house. This one that's right here. I'd like to buy that house. Okay? Well, Mr. Aiden, do you think she could buy this house if she's not one of those people?
Sure.
Yes, you can. Look up here at the very top. Eligible bidders. Owner occupants, not-for-profits, and governmental agencies. So in that situation, Miss Leela could bid on this house. Now, she cannot get it half off because of the fact is she's not one of those areas, but she could still bid on this house. Okay? And the price that shows list price is only the list price. These houses sometimes go lower than what their list price is. Okay? So again, there is an option, but let me explain something. Your broker, the broker you're sponsored by, must be approved by the government, and we have to pay fees. Okay? So if your broker's not part of it, you can't help your clients plan these. Okay? So very key when you're picking your broker, you need to make certain that your broker is approved as a HUD vendor, because if not, your clients have no access to this. Yes, Ms. Linda?
Do you have to, on this, and you talking about the bidding and all that, you have to go back and pay back taxes or anything like that?
No, ma'am. These are properties that have already ended up. They're done. They're finished. It's clean, free and clear if you purchase.
They have a clear title.
They will have clear title. Yes, Ms. Linda.
Okay.
Okay. So again, very important in these situations. Now, I will tell you, this is a hot commodity. A lot of experienced agents know about this, and they are checking this every single day. Every single day they're checking this. So in that situation is, if you want to get in it, you got to go quick. You can't wait. I have agents that I've talked to. They think that the world revolves around their schedule. Okay? Doesn't happen like that. So when you're dealing with something like this, you got to be on top of it. Yes, Ms. Linda.
Are you HUD approved?
I am HUD approved. Yes, ma'am. Been HUD approved since 2012, 13, somewhere in there. I don't know how long. It's been a while. And I've bidded on these and everything. Okay?
Have you had any agents actually
Yes, I've had a couple of agents that have closed.
on HUD
Did you get your full amount if it was 400,000?
What do you mean?
commission?
You commissioned the,
Yeah, you still get commission, but you're not going to get the normal 3%. It normally ranges. It could be 1%.
so is it on the whole amount?
It's on the total.
Okay.
Yeah. And again, it's treated the same way. But again, there are other homes for sales, and this is another thing. I always encourage my agents as much as I can to look on HUD, because there are properties like right here. You've got the Internal Revenue Service, the IRS. They come and repo, say, Mr. Eaton's home. Guess what? They'll put it up here on IRS. Okay? They'll put it on the market. So there are a lot of places that you can go on here. Now understand, like I said, for you to bid on these things, you as an individual, like Miss Linda, say that you want it to go home yourself and you want it to bid, good luck. Okay? You have to have an approved broker to bid on your behalf. Okay? So you cannot, as a layperson, you cannot bid yourself. A broker has to bid on your behalf.
It's the same thing with an agent.
The agent has to use their broker's license. Yes. The broker is the one that is the only one that can bid, not an agent or anything. So when you get your license as an agent, you can't go on here and bid. You have to talk to your broker, and your broker has to put the bid in for you.
So basically, the agent has to work very closely
Very
with the broker.
closely with the broker. Mhm.
Okay.
And deadlines, extremely strict. You screw up, you can lose the sale. Okay?
That was not like that. They put their fees.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, they're slow. The government is slow to pay you, but fast. But when they want something done, you better move at their schedule. Okay. So, the Fair Housing and Equal Opportunity, the FHEO. Again, the FHEO deals with all these acts. Now, Mr. Travis, do you need to know every single one of these acts and the details and read every one of them and know every single thing about it?
Nope.
No?
Why not?
You mean they don't need to go home and read just one of those that's probably like 6 million pages long tonight?
Oh, God, no.
No. The key thing is these are just things you need to know, okay? But you are not going to be required to read them all. Now, I do know, if I'm correct, Mr. Travis, if they wanted these, Miss Linda will read them to them at night, right, for a bedtime story.
Yes.
No.
I've been sleeping really well recently.
You have.
Yeah.
You've been reading them. Which one are you on right now, Mr.
I
Travis?
got through the first one. I'm halfway through the Civil Rights Act right now.
Oh, you threw the. Well, that's good, Miss
Yeah.
Linda. What page are you on right now?
I don't think this being truthful in here.
So in that situation is, yes, y'all do not need to read all of these. You just need to know about them, okay? Again, housing, the ones that you're going to deal with most likely on the norm in your everyday practice is going to be most likely the housing choice voucher. That's for individuals, like I said earlier, about aid, need, and assistance, okay? You might off and on see the Good Neighbor Next Door program, okay? We don't really see very often the Native American housing simply because we're not in that area. If you're out of Texas, maybe, but not so much in Texas, okay? Hope for homeowners, there is some programs that are out there for individuals that meet certain criteria. And the Neighborhood Stabilization Program, the NSP, that happens a lot when an area has been run down, okay? Now, I will tell you, I had a very good friend of mine that used to work with me at the community college I teach at, and he got approved to run the Neighborhood Stabilization Program in a certain neighborhood here in Bryan. And the government gave him a lot of money, but he had to repair the entire subdivision, that one street, okay? So he had to go into all the houses, the people that lived there and things like that, had to take a certain amount of money, had to show improvements, had to show painting them, cleaning them, rehabbing them, all of that type of stuff. He had to deal with it. You can charge labor costs, you can charge things to that nature, but he ended up losing a lot of money because of the fact is that most of the time they don't give you enough, but how you make your stuff is that it's more publicity wise. So Travis may go out and say, hey, I'm going to do, say for example, William J. Bryant. Okay, I'm going to do a couple of houses on that area. The government says we'll give you $200,000 to renovate or rehab those houses. Okay, Travis goes in there, he rehabs them. What finds out is that $200,000 or $300,000 he got ain't worth it. He actually spent maybe $300,000, or he spent exactly the exact amount he was given. So what ends up happening is Travis made no money, but what can Travis do? He can use it as a marketing situation to put his name up and all that everywhere, that Travis Stahl is out here, he's rehabilitating this area, okay? So there are different things. There's a lot of governmental programs that are out there that you can use to go in and rehabilitate a neighborhood, okay? A lot of different programs that are provided for you. Now, let me come back over here. There we go. All right. Now, you will hear a lot about the interstate land sales tax or sales on your test. Okay, you need to be aware of this. And it's basically year-round sunshine, sign up here, good soil for crops. These are basically regulations under the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau as of 2021. What happens is that they, as you can see from this first little photograph up here, you'll notice where they had the desert, and they're saying, guess what? It's year-round sunshine. Aiden, come on, move over here, man. We're in the desert, but you know what? It ain't the desert. It's year-round sunshine, man. You don't have to worry about that snow that came in town. You have sunshine all year long. Okay. What happened is that there are going to be situations where the interstate land sales, the purpose of it is that there are going to be sales that are going to be interstate. Okay. There are going to be sales all over. There are certain rules and regulations that come into the interstate land sales process. If you're going to buy property overseas, or not overseas, out of state, there are certain regulations and requirements that have to be met. But primarily, what ends up happening in this situation is that this type of sale is actually going to be regulated pursuant to the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. Now, I can tell you if you live in central Texas, you ain't got to worry about this. Okay. But if you end up living on the border of Oklahoma or Louisiana or New Mexico, guess what? You're going to deal with this a lot. Okay. You're going to deal with this a lot because what happens is, just like a friend of mine lives in Mexico, but he works in the United States, he comes back and forth every day. Okay. Well, in that situation he is doing, in this situation, instead of interstate, he's international transactions. Okay. So when we're dealing with these situations, you have to be able to tell the differences and how they're basically put together. Okay. Now, what about some community programs? Well, there are the community development block grants. There can actually, in some situations, Mr. Eugene might say, you know what, I want to go in and redevelop a particular block in College Station. Well, if it meets the certain requirements, Mr. Eugene, the government may grant you some money to do this. Okay, and you can take that cash and you can go in and you can redevelop that area. Okay, now let me explain though something. If you see that last word there, Mr. Aiden, what's that word right there say?
Grant.
What's a grant, sir? Do you have to pay it back?
No.
No. And what is it often for? Who gets it most of the time? People that just want it or need it?
People that need it.
People that need it. Okay. So let me ask you this. Everybody needs money, right? Okay. Do you think they're going to make it easy for you to end up getting that grant?
No.
No. Okay. Last time I had to deal with grant writing, that was a nightmare. Miss Linda, did you ever have to deal with grant writing?
I try to stay out of that mess.
All right. Some people have dealt with it. If you have dealt with it, you know the nightmare. Okay. When I dealt with the grant that I had to deal with for a not-for-profit agency, I was the board member on. I think it took us. We had to hire a lady, and she worked for 3.5 months solely on that grant. Nothing else, but on that grant for 3.5 months.
You have to get a lot of data.
You got to get a lot of data, a lot of information. You got to you got to survey places. You got to show a lot of things to show that Aiden needs that money. Okay, Aiden, you can't just get on the phone and say, "Hey, I need some money." Wish it was that easy, right?
Yeah.
Okay. You actually have to show the data and show the information that you need, not want that information. You see what I'm saying? That money. Okay. Urban renewal.
Can I ask a question?
Yes,
I'm
Ms.
sorry.
Yes.
You said something about, redoing like an area, a block.
Redevelopment.
Redevelopment. Zoning, is that, I don't know why the word zoning comes to my mind. Do you have to, is that part of that as well? Could that
Yes, so
happen?
zoning can occur in some situations. If, like in Houston, what happens is, so if you've been in Houston or know of Houston or live in Houston, what happens in the situation is Houston is actually a city that does not use or utilize zoning very often. Okay, they don't. Reason why, you can be driving in Houston on one road and be in a neighborhood, and next thing you know, you're in some like very sketchy area, and then you're in commercial, and then you're back in a neighborhood, and then you're somewhere else. Okay, what happens is that there is no proper zoning. There is none of this, this part of the town is going to be this part of the town is going to be this part of the town is going to be this. There is none of that. Okay, like here in College Station, we utilize a lot where if you're on the main road, you notice when you're driving on Highway 6 through College Station, on both sides, it's commercial or raw land. Behind those is normally what we call buffer zones, which could be an apartment complex, could be a park, could end up being a bunch of different little things that then ends up, after the buffer, you get to the what? The residence. Okay, so that is zoning. The purpose of zoning is that we're having a buffer. We got our commercial, and our commercial is not going to be right next door. Like if you're buying a house, Mr. Aiden, you're not going to have a skyscraper right next door to your house. Okay, we're not going to put a pig farm right next to your house. Okay, we're going to kind of separate it out so that it's split and it's organized. In major cities, I talk about Houston because it's the closest one, but in major cities, most of them don't have zoning. Because the problem is guess what? You're such a big area, it's hard to rezone something that's just everybody did what they wanted to do for years, and now, okay, well, we're gonna come back and zone. It's too late. Okay? It's kind of like going into a hoarder's house and saying, okay, everybody, now that there's 50 years of hoarding here, let's go organize everything. Okay? That's not what you do. It's too late. Okay? At that point, it's might as well just what? Strike a match, throw it out there, and throw some gasoline. Bulldozer down. You know, just get rid of it. Okay. So in that particular situation, you have to understand it's very key that there are going to be different reasons with zoning, and we'll talk more about those when we get to them. But yes, sometimes what happens is if it is an area that is zoned, say, residential, and we're noticing that it is a high rental place, well, yeah, we may want to take that grant to rezone it for commercial so that we could end up doing what? Put an apartment complex. Bring in an apartment complex and do things to that nature. Okay? So, yes, some of those things can be brought in. Urban renewal, like I said, they're trying to revitalize a lot of the urban areas. We want to kind of bring in more of this revitalization in regards to these situations so that we have this revitalized market. Okay? We want new things. Okay? So in that situation, there is urban renewal that's utilized through these community programs. And of course, we have public housing. Now, the problem with public housing is this. There's only so much public housing that's out there. Okay? And the problem is in this situation that we see with public housing, is a lot of times is people that get public housing doesn't really need it. Okay? They may end up, I'm just using examples here. They may end up, they have 8 kids. A lady has 8 kids, and she ends up keep sleeping around, and she keeps having more and more kids, and she says, well, I need public housing. Okay? Well, at some point, when do you end up having some obligation? Versus when you've got somebody that is mentally, from birth, mentally handicapped, that cannot work, needs the home, and they don't have a place to go. Okay? So in that situation there's a lot of different ways you got to look at this. Okay? Now, some people may say, well, Mr. Knowles, what if that lady or the girl that's having all those kids, maybe, she was raped as a child and she went through that and she can't get a job, or she has mental health issues. I understand that too. Completely understand that. But in the same situation there's been a lot of things in regards to public housing reform. And what they're trying to do is that they're trying to make it where if they can't hold a job down, then they give back to the community. If you're going to live here, you give back to the community that you're in. One of the things that I like about here in regards to Habitat for Humanity, when they go around and they build houses, Mr. Eden, if they come in and they build you a house, guess what? When they build another house, you have to help with building that other house. So they will help put you in a house, but you now have to help them to build other properties. And it just keeps going like that. That's how the process works. So in that situation they're trying to figure out ways in this, but yes, there is a need for reform, and there are a lot of real estate agents that get into this to assist with that reform. Okay? Now, there is what's called RESPA TILA, and that's going to be the integrated disclosures. Of course, these were effective August 1st, 2015. And so what happened before, let me kind of stop on this and let me explain some stuff real quick to you. So used to, say for example that Mr. Keith, okay, he wanted to purchase a property. Mr. Keith goes over there, he wants to buy a house, and he ends up in this particular situation. He says, you know what, I want to buy a house from Mr. Eugene, so I'm going to go call Mr. Grossman. Mr. Grossman, you end up, sir, you go over, you pre-approve him, and you would give him basically a loan estimate to show exactly what his, basically it's this right here, your GFE, you gave him the GFE and the initial truth in lending disclosure. That's what he would have gave Mr. Keith at the beginning of him applying. Okay, they gave the estimate and the truth in lending. So it says, this is what we're estimating, and this is how much you're approximately going to pay. When Mr. Keith would close, you would give him a HUD-1 and a final truth in lending disclosure. So there was 4 documents. There was 2 in the beginning, 2 in the end. Now, the real estate agents did not like the HUD. Real estate agents for years complained about the HUD. You want to know why? Here's why. Because when Mr. Keith went to close, and he ended up using Miss Leela as his agent, when Mr. Keith got his HUD statement to go through the numbers, guess what was the very top of the HUD form? Real estate commission percentage. So all of a sudden, Mr. Keith, who maybe barely purchased the house, sees that Miss Leela's getting $16,000. See a problem there, Mr. Aiden? If you're Mr. Keith, how do you feel about that? You barely scratched by, had probably empty a lot of your bank accounts and all, and here you go, Mr. Keith, you went over here and did all of that stuff, and then here's Miss Leela on closing day. She's walking away with $16,000. How do you feel about that, Mr. Keith here?
I would want a piece of that.
Yeah, exactly. I had to go, scrape and borrow and everything to get the money so I could make this, and here's Miss Leela, who's walking away with a $16,000 check. What in the world?
Leela, you gonna share some with me?
Of course I will.
Oh, she's so
Sweet of
sweet.
you.
Miss Leela, don't you dare. Keep it, Miss Leela.
So we'll.
But in that situation, it made us as real estate agents, it made us look bad. Okay? It made us look bad because the fact is, we go negotiate and everything. We did all this work, and our client had to, basically beg and scrape up money and all to go and pay for their closing. And here it is, the first thing they see at the top of the HUD statement is, guess what? They're getting a big chunk of money. They're seeing all that money. And see, here's the problem, guys and gals. I'm going to tell you something. When you're a real estate agent, I'm just going to be dead honest with you. This happens every single time I do a transaction. They don't see, clients don't see what you do behind the scenes. They don't. I was talking to some brokers the other day, and one of the brokers said, 80% of the work that we as real estate agents do is done, if it's a sale, it's done before we even put the property on the MLS. 80% of the work that we do is prior to us putting the property on there. And that's the stuff that's done in-house. Okay? So what happens is I spent a lot of time preparing a house to get out there and get it taking pictures and, get everything prepared, stage it, paint it, whatever needs to be done. Guys, I used to go out to houses and I would paint them myself. You can ask my parents. There was times when I was a real estate agent, guys and gals, my agents have nothing compared to how I had it. Okay, nothing. Because guys and gals, when I was first real estate agent, I was literally going out to the houses and painting houses by myself, and I'd call my buddies and say, hey, I'll buy you pizza if you just come help me. I need help. I'm trying to paint a 2-story house that college kids destroyed, and I need to get this thing listed. And I'd have to get out there, and all I could afford was some pizza. And I'd hopefully, if I was lucky, got 1 or 2 friends to come help me, and I had to paint the house. There's times I call my mom. Mom, can you come out and help clean? I'm painting. Can you come clean behind me?
You break it up.
She
No, I
she would. She'd come out there. My mom and my sister would come out and clean. There was a lot of things that I did. Okay? The reason why in these situations is clients don't see that stuff. When a client comes in and says, hey, Eden, I want you to list my property for sale. If I was to go list a property that a bunch of college guys lived in for 2 years, do you think I can just put that up right after they move out?
Majority no.
Majority no. Because what's going to be left at that house, Aiden?
Beer cans
condoms, be honest.
I wasn't gonna go there.
Oh, yeah. Beer
Yeah.
cans, condoms, trash, garbage,
Couches,
couches,
tires.
all different types of crap.
Needles.
See, I've seen drugs.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. I've
Yes,
seen it all.
motorcycle.
Motorcycles, yeah. They leave just junk.
Lifted.
Okay, just leave it. Well, somebody's got to clean it. You think the landlord's going to do it? Nope. Very few do. Very few do. Very few do. So one thing that I tell people this all the time is that in this situation is, you want to go put that up on the market. If I put it up on the market just the way that those college kids left it, what happens?
You wouldn't get nowhere.
It ain't going to rent. It ain't going to rent. Okay? You have to, in that duty, it is your obligation that you have to try to make that house look as nice as you can. Now, does that mean, and that's where at one point I had to just stop because it was too much. Guys, I would go out there with my own money and paint houses just so I could try to get the sale. Until eventually what happens? You go out there and you put all this effort and time and all that into it, and then the house doesn't sell. And then they're like, well, you didn't do anything. You didn't paint it, you didn't do nothing. Well, I painted the place, I cleaned the place, did this, and did that, did. And now you pull it and take it and give it to another agent to list it. Okay? After I talked to my attorney said, Justin, that's not a good idea. Number one, it's a terrible financial decision. But number two is, if you're out there painting their house and you screw something up, you got to fix it. It's all on you. Okay? So when you do these things, what ends up has to happen is this, is that when you are working your tail off, yes, guys, I will be honest with you. I have made 5-digit, my largest check has been a 5-digit check. And I made that in 40 days. 40 days. Took the listing, ended up, it was in a neighborhood where the average days on market was 682 days. I sold that listing in about 40 days. I think it's 44 exact, I think. I sold that listing in 44 days. My client was like, you shouldn't be making that kind of money. You ain't entitled to $45,000. 44 days, you didn't do nothing. That's a year's worth of work. And my response was, sir, you live in Austin. I have drove back every day from College Station to Austin for about 3 weeks, taking photos, cleaning up the place, doing showings, open houses, all of this stuff, back and forth, back and forth. Guys, there was a time that I can guarantee you, my mother can tell you, my father can tell you, what ended up happening was I would leave the college that I worked at, I would drive down to Houston to go do a showing down there, and then beeline it on 290 down to Austin, showing there, and beeline it back to College Station. I had to do that 3 times in back to back in a row. Imagine driving from here to Houston, Houston to Austin, Austin back home, and go to sleep and get up and do it all over again. Okay? A true hustler has to do that. But does your clients see that?
No.
No, your clients don't see that. Your clients don't see the hours that you do. Guys, I can tell you right now, you want to ask my hours, here's my hours. You ready? My hours is, I wake up about 7:30 in the morning. Everybody's like, man, I wish I could wake up at 7:30 in the morning. Well, here's the thing. I wake up at 7:30, but I don't go to bed till about 1 or 2 in the morning. Because see, when I shut off my office at 5, we shut down. I get a very little quick break to go grab something to eat, come in here, teach y'all. Then, after I finish here about 7:30 or so, guess what ends up happening? I have to end up, I got to do some more work that I had to put off because I had to help my agents or help my assistants or help those people or help my clients. So all the work that has to be done for me has to be done at what time? In the evening time. So I end up about 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock. Most people are saying, man, I'm ready to go to bed. And I'm saying, wish, I'm just starting my day. So about 8, 9 o'clock, I'm starting my day. And I don't get to go to bed until basically, guys, my eyes are almost shut and I'm about to fall out of my chair. And I crash in bed. I do it all over again. Huh? Yeah, I do fall asleep in the middle of the text. Travis has been with me. He's texted me, I responded, and I'm gone. I'm out. I can't go anymore. It's fast. He's just like, boom, I crashed. So what I tell you is yes, your clients do not see that stuff. Your client, and I'm not trying to ask for, feel sorry for Justin. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just trying to say this. I'm saying the fact is, in this situation is, guys and gals, your clients are not going to see when they look at that final disbursement form. They're not going to see the hours that you put in on that house. They don't see you sitting down, entering this stuff into the MLS. A lot of people say, oh, that's easy. You just type some stuff in.
Okay.
Mr. Grossman, as you're coming in real quick, how easy is it to put stuff in the MLS? So simple, right? Like 2 seconds, you type it in, boom, it all spits out quickly for you?
No, I wish, but no.
No, can it take a long time?
Sometimes, yeah.
Yeah, it can take a long time.
And then you figure out you missed some information, so you gotta go back to the property and get it.
That's right. You get back here, you sit down, you're like, okay, I think I got it all, type it in, and then you validate it, and it says, nope, that information is no good. Drive back out to the property, redo it.
Yep.
Go back out there, redo it. Then you come back, like my luck is all the time. I come back, enter the information in, still no good. Go back out again and do it. Okay? Your clients don't see that. Your clients don't see the fact of the matter when it's 100 and something degrees outside and you're installing a for sale sign for them. Well, all Aiden's doing is putting a for sale sign up. That ain't hard. Yeah, go try to put a for sale sign in that nice, wonderful clay soil that we have here in Texas. Guys, I'm gonna tell you, real nice story. So I got so tired of breaking hammers that my dad would let me use. Because every time I'm talking taking hammers, big old hammers, wood hammer, bam, there goes the thing. I got the stick in my hand, but there went the metal part. Okay? So then I said, you know what? I'm going to outsmart him. I'm going to go get a drill with a nice long drill bit because I saw another broker post it. So I got a drill that I bought with a nice long, probably about a foot and a half in regards to about the length of it. And I'll just drill into it and put the sign in. That's what I'll do. Smart. Put it on max speed. Pop. That thing's dead. That was a new one. Yeah, clients don't see that stuff. Mr. Grossman can tell you, how was that putting the sign up for that big post that you put up? How easy was that digging the hole?
Yeah, I was not equipped for that.
Yeah, not equipped at all. Okay?
What about measuring?
Yeah. All of these
Just
situations.
all around not equipped for that.
Yeah. The entire situation, guys, I can tell you, I could write a book. My agents could write books. Our wasp honey back there. And we can end up, we can write you some books. We can tell you stories. Okay? But the thing is that your clients don't see this. Your clients don't see the headaches you go through. Your clients don't see what's going on. They think all that Mr. Grossman did was he went back there and he just click, boom, house just magically appears perfectly on the MLS. And then some person just came in and just gave him a contract and he just made a few phone calls and that's it. He's done. He made his money. That was it. Mr. Stahl, Mr. Grossman, has any transactions that y'all done so far just been so easy?
Dear God, no.
Dear God, no. Exactly. No. I had one lady that she transferred to my firm and she came over here and she's like, Justin, I've been in real estate for godly almost probably 4 decades. And I've never seen the crap that you deal with. How the hell do you do it? And I said, it's how it is. When you end up, when you're a one-man show and you're trying to keep all your clients happy, you got to do what you got to do. You got to do what you do. You got to make them happy. Okay? So the key thing is in this situation is that you have to do the best you can. But like I said, your clients are not going to see it. And I promise you, when you get in real estate, it happens almost at least once a week to one of my agents when they're going out talking to a person about listing their house. Once a week, this happens. Well, can you give me half your commission? And I finally told this agent that recently came to, She texted me, she said, have you ever heard of an agent giving half their commission away? I said, yeah, desperate agents. Desperate agents do it, but experienced agents don't. She said, well, I wasn't giving mine away anyway. This guy ended up basically told her in a text, you give me half your money and we got deal. And her response, I didn't get a chance to do it. Her response back to him was, you give me half your yearly income, we call it deal.
Yeah.
She says, I don't work for free, you don't work for free, we got to work together. His thing was, well, you just going to put house up on market, that's easy. And her response was, come on up here, I'll show you what all goes into it. Because guys, there is, and when you get your license and on, you get sponsored, and you end up, you go over for me, and if you work with me, there's 180 steps in every real estate transaction. 180. Doesn't seem like it, but there's 180.
Seems like more than that.
Oh yeah, there's 180 steps in every real estate transaction. They don't show you those things, but there is. That's why a lot of times when I go to a listing presentation, I provide my seller that information. Why am I entitled to 3%? Here you go. Here's 180 things that I got to do for you. 180. And I have to do every one of those things. Not including, with me as the broker, if something goes wrong, I have to help defend you in court. And I don't get paid for that. Okay? So guys and gals, I'm going to tell you right now, it's not easy. It's difficult. It's very difficult. Okay? But again, what I'm coming back to these situations is with the Consumer Financial Protection, the HUD-1 and the Truth in Lending, as well as the GFE and the Truth in Lending up here, they were basically, these 4 documents were combined into 2. The loan estimate basically ended up putting the information into one document for your client to understand. And they made it big enough and easy for your clients to see. I'll show you an example here real quick. Let's see here. This is what a loan estimate looks like. That's not going to let me do it. But this is what a loan estimate looks like.
That's a close.
Okay? So this is your closing cost details. These are
When it
approximate.
comes to comparing loan offers, there's only one document that matters.
She's talking. That's not me, I promise you. I did not get any type of change. I'm still here. Okay? All right. So coming back to the situation is, as you can see, this is a loan approximate cost. It's your loan cost, it's the other cost, and then here's your calculating the amount to close. Okay? They redesigned it so that it's easier for a person to understand that all of my loan information is right here. Anything related to my loan is right here. Anything in regards to other costs is here, and my total amount in regards to how much I need to either that I'm going to receive or bring to closing is right here. So as you can see, estimated cash to close from borrower, this person would have to bring in $5,160. Okay, so that is a loan estimate. Gives you an approximate number. Okay, now it looks very similar if we go over here to the, as you see here, the closing disclosure. Okay, the closing disclosure is going to be very similar to it. Okay, this is a sample closing disclosure. You can kind of see it. I don't know if it'll, no, it's not going to let me blow it up here. But this part right here is your closing disclosure. Okay, it's going to tell you your loan terms, the projected payments, and your closing costs. You flip over, these are your closing details, these are your other costs. And if you notice when you're going through here, our information is normally right here on the second page. We're no longer on the first page. Okay, so no longer is the first thing you see the real estate agent's commission. They're going to actually see how much loan they got, what their interest rate is, and what their monthly payments are. Okay, so their attention is where? On their payments, on their amount. They're not focused on how much you're making. Okay, now does this mean that, oh, this is wonderful, I'm hiding my commission? No. No. You never, ever do you go out and hide your commission or try to hide it. Okay? It is your duty as an agent. Your client should never be surprised at how much they're paying you. Your client is surprised at how much money you're making, you've got a problem. Your client needs to know how much you're making off of it. Okay? Very important in this situation. Okay? Because you want to make certain that your client understands it.
I'm
Yes,
sorry.
Miss Linda.
That's when they are at their
This is when they're actually sitting down.
at the very end and everything is finalized and everybody signed the papers and all that stuff.
That's correct. They are sitting, so this actually has to be given to them 3 days prior to them closing.
That's what I thought.
Okay? And let me tell you guys and gals, it's very important. That 3 days is very important. I can tell you this for a fact. Because of the fact is that your client cannot close their loan within 3 days. So if they don't receive this, say that they're supposed to close Friday. They're supposed to close this Friday. Can they close this Friday now? Your client, Aiden, is supposed to close Friday, and they receive this now. Can they close Friday? No, what has to happen now? You got to move your closing date to Sunday? Monday. You have to move it to Monday. Cannot move closing on a weekend. Okay? Has to be on a Monday. Okay? Now, here's the thing. Now, I will say this. Say your client is about to go out of town, and it's Saturday. They could have a mobile notary come out to the property, and a mobile notary could go out there and close the loan, but it will not be processed until Monday.
That
Okay.
working day.
That working day. Okay? Now, if Monday's a holiday, be that Tuesday. But understand here, what if the client was supposed to close Friday? So Travis, you're representing a buyer. Mr. Travis is representing the seller. Aiden, you're representing buyer. Travis, you're representing seller. And they get their closing disclosure today, and your clients need to move in because they have nowhere to go. And now we got Mr. Travis here. Do you think Mr. Travis's sellers are going to move out and wait till Tuesday and let your clients move on in? No. Now your clients are going to be doing what? This is another reason you don't want to give up your commission. Okay? You don't want to give up your commission in the beginning, because here's the thing. I've had this happen many times to me. Lender screws up something. There's an issue. My clients now don't have a place to go. So I'm you, Aiden. My clients don't have a place to go.
Homeless.
Guess what? Are you going to move them in with you, Aiden? No.
You gotta put them up
You got to put them up.
in a motel.
And that comes out of what? Out of your pocket or out of your commission? You want it out of your commission. You don't want to lose it out of your own money. You don't want to write it off. You want it out of your commission. So yeah, you would go ahead and pay it out of pocket, but you don't get your money back. So had you given up half your money up front, now you gave up even more. Okay? There's a reason for that. I always have a cushion in my commissions because there's anything can happen. There's been times I've had to have the place painted. I had to have the place professionally cleaned. That came out of my commissions. Okay? That's my job. So what ends up happening in this situation is that when you're dealing with these, you have to make certain by all means that you have to end up that your clients understand that it is, like I said, coming back to that, there's a 3-day point that Aiden, in that situation, you put them up, they're not going to be able to close until Tuesday because Monday's a holiday. Mr. Travis's people are not going to move out until they get their money. And so now you're putting them up Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. You're almost putting them up for a week.
You gotta figure Friday, Saturday,
And-
and Sunday, you pay more.
And you got to pay more. And they have stuff that's probably in U-Hauls.
Yeah.
So now you get to put storage too. Okay? So you may end up paying $2,000 in order for them to end up going into that situation where you're taking that out of your money. What if you only got 0.5%? Your total commission was $2,000. You did that entire thing for free. Okay? So what happens in some situations is if you end up, it's not so much important that you need to know every little detail here. You need to know how these deals are basically done. You need to know how to read them and understand them. But one of the key things also, guys and gals, I tell my real estate agents all the time is, if you want to make some extra cash on the side, this is the easiest way to do it. You want to know why? Mr. Stahl, how often do title companies, do they open their doors on Saturdays and Sundays to be convenient for their customers?
Convenient? They don't do that.
Convenient, they don't do that.
Nothing
Exactly.
convenient, ever.
No, never convenient. No, 5 o'clock, we shut that thing down. Okay, guys, I'm not going to kid with y'all. I went to a closing I think it was in Huntsville, actually. I did a closing in Huntsville. Drove all the way from College Station, Huntsville, walked in, sat down, we did the signing, did everything we had to do there, did the signing, and ended up, they said, well, we're waiting on the funds process. I said, okay. They said, how about y'all go to lunch? We sat there, by the way, we were there at 9 o'clock. We sat there from 9 to 12, no monies had been transferred. So the lady finally comes in, how about y'all to go to lunch, and then y'all come back, and we should have the money. So we said, yeah, let's all go, everybody go to lunch, we'll come back. So we went to lunch. We did about an hour lunch, come back, and they had the door still locked. And they said, we don't open until 1:30. They closed for an hour and a half lunch. We sat there, and by 1:30, they still weren't back. 2 o'clock, here comes the lady. Oh, I'm sorry, I was at lunch. Well, do you know if we have the money? No, I don't know. I've been at lunch. That's how title companies sometimes work. They're not convenient. So one thing that I always tell people, especially real estate agents, is that sometimes it's a great idea to end up that you want to go over there, and you might want to end up getting basically what do you call that? Your notary license, and take the certification course. I teach a certification course for basically for mobile notaries. And what ends up happening is that you can't close your own client's loans. So Aiden, if you're representing the transaction, you can't close your own client's loans. But here's what you can do. You could end up asking for another person that's in the office. It couldn't be somebody immediately in the office, but you may end up asking, say, Darren, who's out of town. You may ask Darren, hey man, I've got a loan that I need closed. Could you come out and close this loan for me? And Darren could make around $250. I've made the largest one I made was $500 for an hour of my time. I had to drive out to Willis from here to close a loan. What happens is you're providing conveniency to your customers, to your clients. I have a friend of mine that whenever I need something immediately closed, I just pick up the phone and say, hey, you available? Yeah, I'm available. Okay, I got a closing. Title won't close it until Monday. Is there a way you could close it Saturday? Because my client's leaving town. I call Title, say, hey, Title, they're leaving Saturday. I got a person ready to do it. Can we do this? They'll release the stuff to that person. Wham, bam. He goes out and closes it on Saturday, puts it in the mail. Monday morning, first thing when they walk in, there it is sitting on the desk. It's all done. They can immediately process that loan. Okay?
Also, when you call the title, don't think they're gonna answer the phone, because you'd be on 15, 20, 30,
Yeah.
45 minutes on hold.
Good luck on Title. Yeah, you call Title, they're very busy. It's not that they're not doing anything. They just have a lot of stuff going at one time. A lot. Mr. Stephan, what you've been going through lately is nothing compared to them. Okay? It ends up, it's triple the work. Okay? You're juggling multiple people at one time. So what happens is if you can make it convenient for your clients, it's a win-win. Guys, when I first started as a real estate agent, before I actually was an agent, the very first part I started in was this, in loan closings. Real estate agents would go around, they would contact me, and I would have like 4 closings in one night. And my minimum charge at that time when I used to do it was $250 a closing. $250. I would work a job where I made $8 an hour for 8 hours. So I made $64 in one day. When I'd leave there at 5 o'clock, I'd go do 4 closings before my classes and end up making $1,000, and then I go to class. Okay? Loan closings can be very lucrative. You can make a lot of money. But how can you sign up for that?
That's exactly what he had.
I always get students all the time that ask me, how do I sign up for that? Shoot me an email, I'll get you the stuff. It's literally no joke. The training's only 2 days. It's 2-day training. Yeah. And you just got to get your notary license. That's it.
Working in real
It's a
estate?
it's a 2-day training, and then it is it's your notary license, and that's it. And a lot of realtors, I'll be honest, Ms. Linda, a lot of realtors, they get out of real estate, not really get out of it, they change over to closings. That's what they change to. But the thing is you're not going to make as much. Say, for example, it's good money to supplement. I'll put it that way. It's great money to supplement, but I will also say in the same situation is you're not going to end up in that particular situation. You're not going to get rich. You're just not. You can probably, when I was going full-fledged, I was probably doing about, I'd say about 15, if I was lucky, 20 closings a month. And I was bringing in probably close to, on average, maybe 3,500, 4,000 a month. And I was just doing those on the side. The only thing that I'll tell you all to know is that the closings do not get to go at your convenience. It's your customer. So you have to go to meet them. So if, for example, Mr. Stahl, you said, you know what, I want to do that. I want to get into this. I want to know how to do that. Well, Mr. Stahl, what ends up happening in that situation is, when you go through the training and all, what happens is you have to go to their house most of the time. So you're not going to do the closing here at our office, for example. You got to go to their house and sit down and do the closing and all there. Now, is it rocket science? No, literally, no joke. The pack, I don't know if y'all can see my hand from back there, but it's probably a good, I would say, 200, 300 pages that you got to go through. Now, you're not going to sign all 200 pages. Okay? You're probably going to sign, there's probably about, I would say, 50 to 75 places they have to sign. Okay? And out of the 50 to 75, you only have to notarize and verify probably about 25. Okay? So you're only working for about 25. The rest of them, they're signing. I'll tell you what I used to do. I got it down to a science, where what I did was, you know, the little sticky tabs that you end up, and you just put on the papers. I would go through and I'd print it off, I'd sticky, and then I'd take the papers. Now I can't do this anymore, but I'd take the papers that I had notarized and I'd pull them out, put to the side, and then I'd just turn over the stuff. So here, Aiden, every place that's sticky, you need to sign or initial. And then when it was all done, then I'd say, okay, here's the one I need to sign, notarize, and I throw it at the back and I go send it off. Now you can't do that anymore. They have to stay in their order. Okay? But here's what you do. Here's what you do though.
Bad apple.
You go in and you stamp them and sign them, but you don't send them off until you're sitting there. So you can go in and pre-prepare the page, but what ends up happening is you have to watch them. So a lot of times to make it more efficient, you can go through and you can stamp them. And then when you're there at the table, I can sit there with Mr. Aiden and I can say, okay, Mr. Aiden, here, sign this. Okay, this is ones I'm notarizing. So I verified your identity. I need you to sign it. I make sure it matches. Okay, boom, next one. I can end up normally in a sale, if a person's selling a house, I can be done in about 15 to 20 minutes. And I'll make about $100, $125 on that. The person is purchasing, takes me about an hour, but I can make around $175 to $250. Person is refinancing, I can sometimes, if I'm lucky and I can negotiate, I can make up to $500. Okay? And it's still about an hour's worth of work.
Are you talking about loans or actually like real estate transactions?
So the loans are the actual transactions.
Well, because I was thinking like when I did the one for Jason.
Exactly what you did is what this is.
Okay, that's fine.
But the difference is you were not the notary, you were there basically guiding the process. Did you see what I'm saying?
Yes, but that's what I'm saying. In Galveston, we went to a notary that my mom knew.
Yep.
And they signed all their closing documents while the notary was there.
That's right. And truthfully, if that notary was not licensed in that, and something happens, that person can get into a lot of trouble.
Well, she was. That's what I would.
Oh, so she was. Okay, so that's good. I was just making
So she
sure.
was.
So in that situation, because there's a lot of people that say, well, I'll just go get my notary license, and I'll just go out there and start doing them. Well, if you don't know what you're doing and you screw it up, you can be in a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
A lot of trouble. Okay. So in that situation is, no, you're going to go through this material and you do that. Now I know I spent a lot of time on that part, but the key that I'm trying to express to you here is that one thing I love about real estate is there's multiple sources of income. Aiden may have no clients right now, but he may end up doing a lot of notaries and make a ton of money and then turn around, take that money and put it into his business. Okay. There's a lot of different ways that you can work it. So like I always tell people, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that. I'll stop now. But if anybody's interested, let me know. It's not a hard class. It's real quick. Like I said, it's not a ton of money either. I think the classes are only like $350, $400, something in there. And your license is only another $100. So it's a total investment of $500. But you do 2 notaries or 2 closings and you already made all your cash back. So not a bad deal. Okay. Okay. So let's go back over here. Okay. So let me get this back. Significant federal legislation. Of course, we have the Equal Credit Opportunity Act, the ECOA. Again, we got to make certain that when we're dealing with credit, we want to make certain that it's fair to everybody. We cannot discriminate based upon sex, familiar status, or anything to that nature. We can only discriminate based upon certain legitimate requirements, such as income. If a person does not make a certain income or have a certain credit score, we can discriminate based on those things. But you cannot say, well, I don't lend to Miss Linda because she's a female. Or I don't lend to Mr. Eugene and Miss Linda because they're married. Okay? I don't do that type of stuff. Okay? You cannot. Now, I could say I don't lend to you, Aiden, because you're a college student. Okay? Because the fact is, he's a student. He don't have a job. So I'm not going to lend to him. Okay? But I cannot, in the situation, I cannot say, well, I'm not going to lend to, an Asian person or Hispanic person. You can't say those things. You have to make it fair to everybody. That's what the Equal Credit Opportunity Act is. Another thing is you can't steer. You cannot steer a person to a certain subdivision. You cannot go over there and say, oh, Mr. Grossman, you're only approved for 150. Yeah, you probably fit better over here in the ghetto. You can't do that. Okay? Well, there are people that do it, unfortunately. That's why there's laws on it. You cannot steer a person into a bad direction. Like you can't say, well, you can only be in this area. Okay? The Real Estate Settlement Procedures Act, that's RESPA. That's that part that we talked about yesterday in regards to kickbacks. You cannot get kickbacks. Okay? You cannot in any shape or form get a kickback from an individual. For example, Mr. Aiden, if you're a appraiser, me and you can't work something out where I'm getting some of your money and you're getting some of my money. It doesn't work like that. Title companies cannot have favors. There's a bunch of things that it has to be across the board. It has to be fair. We talked about truth in lending already. I'm not going to spend time on that. The Community Reinvestment Act, we've already talked about that too. It's about basically putting money back into a community to revitalize that area. Okay. Again, you do have the Equal Credit Opportunity Act. Like it says, a lender may not ask if they are divorced or widowed. They may not ask about the receipt of alimony or child support unless it is used to qualify. Okay? So if you don't disclose it, they can't ask about it. They can't ask for information about the spouse unless it's going on the loan. So you cannot say, Mr. Eugene, are you married?
Yeah.
Tell me everything about your wife. Is she pregnant?
Oh my God.
That's none of your business.
Well, I need to know if she's pregnant, because if she's pregnant, she may not be making money, and you're going to be off of work. So we're not going to give you the loan, Mr. Noakes.
Well, I was surprised.
You see the problem? You can't lead to that. They can't ask those things. You cannot ask about birth control. Mr. Eugene, does your wife use birth control?
I don't think she does. No,
Well, we need to know it, because if she's using birth control,
Hey, swing on horn.
yeah.
What's that field name you take?
Yeah. Can you just imagine that, Miss Leela? If your husband calls you, at the bank, he calls and says, "Hey, honey, you on birth control?" You can see the nightmare there, right, Miss Linda? You agree with Miss Leela on that one? I think you, Miss Leela, probably hurt your husbands if that happened,
I
right?
think I'm fixing to come after you.
You-
Where are you going?
you get in that situation, you can't talk about it. Okay? You can't in any shape or form ask, because they're actually, when I first read about this a while back, when they were talking about lenders actually asking about if their clients utilize birth control or if they're planning to be pregnant, I was like, what in the world? Why would they ask that? And then after I saw the reason was that the thing is, when a person is making, say, $2,000 a month, and it's just a husband and wife, $2,000 a month may be okay for two people. But if you're going to be pregnant and have kids, what ends up happening? Now it gets more expensive and they may not be able to pay the note. But it's not allowed. They cannot ask about those things. Okay?
That's none of your business.
That's right. It's none of your business. It's privacy.
Now keep moving.
Now, there is also the discount income that's due to the source. The lender may, however, ask, are you married? Are you unmarried or separated? Ask about your obligation to pay child support or alimony. They may ask for the spouse information if and only if that person's going to be part of the debt. Okay. They must report the credit info on couples separately for each name. And they can ask about race or national origin, but the borrower can refuse to answer. So it's optional. So they can put it on the application, but they cannot require it, if you see what I'm saying. Okay. And another thing that they don't talk about here, they cannot end up in a situation, they cannot deny you because you answered it. Say that you put Hispanic, they cannot deny you based solely on you putting your race Hispanic. Okay, it's against the rules. In regards to the Real Estate Settlement Procedures Act, again, there's a list here who it applies to. As you see, the very top one is real estate brokers and agents. It applies to us. Requires certain disclosures. Again, like we talked about, the good faith estimate, the preliminary HUD statement and settlement, the comparative loan estimate and closing disclosure, and after settlement, the annual escrow statement. In regards to any more financial legislations, you have your truth in lending. It allows consumers to compare the cost of credit. They're able to look across what it's going to cost me. They must disclose the APR. What exactly is the annual percentage rate? Regulation Z requires disclosure of all terms of finance. The Community Reinvestment Act, the CRA, of course, is financial institutions must provide credit in areas that they serve. They have to provide that credit. And the Home Mortgage Disclosure Act, the HMDA, is that lenders must report demographic information as well. Okay. Again, the state and local financing agencies. These are your different local and state agencies. You have your industrial development agencies, which are going to be your industrial revenue bonds. The mortgage insurance programs are general obligations or revenue bonds as well. The community redevelopment agencies, of course, are going to focus on low-income housing and tax increment financing as well. It's very important because, again, the locality, we want to try to encourage the building of the different organizations. And of course, as you can see, there's a nice picture of my mom and dad here. So what ends up happening here is you got the agricultural lending, and of course there are different cycles in regards to the requirements. Remember, like we talked before, you have your Farmer Mac. Remember, whenever we talk about Farmer Mac, we're talking about what? We're talking about farms. Now, does it mean, Mr. Travis, do you think it means that they only deal with farms and nobody else?
Yes,
So you have to run a farm.
Only farmers named Mac.
Only farmers that are named Mac. That's right.
Nobody else.
Okay. You got to be able to sing, what is it?
Old McDonald.
Old McDonald. That's right.
Only one.
That's the only way you can get approved for this one. Okay. So, but no, all seriousness on this one is that the Farmer Mac basically deals with any type of rule. And I'll tell you something. The USDA rural development, a lot of people think, well, you got to live probably out in the boondocks, okay, to qualify. No, you don't. There are certain places that are here in Bryan College Station where Mr. Grossman right now is currently selling a property. It's in a nice subdivision. It falls under the USDA provisions. Mr. Grossman, the area that you're selling right now is that property predominantly look like this, sir? The picture here on the slide. Does it look like that? Well, can you say it a little louder?
No,
No, why not? What's it look like?
it's urban.
It's urban. It actually has houses there. But how's it qualifying for USDA? It's because of the fact is our demographic of our area that qualifies. That area is qualified for urban or rural development. We want to try to turn that into that. So one of the positive things about USDA is you can purchase a house for only the whopping sum of $500. You go find a house, you pay $500 down, and you can move in. Any person that has $500 of good credit and it meets the requirements of USDA can move into one of those houses. And Mr. Grossman, are they terrible houses? Are they very bad looking houses out there? Now they're pretty decent, aren't they? Pretty decent homes, okay? So there are benefits in regards to these situations. So they do not have to, in this particular situation, they don't have to look like this picture here, okay? They can have a normal home because they're trying to develop the land. And they're trying to make it go into that. So again, that kind of comes back to what I was saying from the very first class to now and things to that nature, is that what we're getting to in this particular situation is we want to make certain that you work with lenders. And that's another reason, like I said earlier when we first started this class, you don't want to just find one lender. Because if I go out and I meet Miss Leela, and she works primarily, let's say, in Harris County, and I go and I talk to her, she may know everything about the city and all the loans and all within the city, but she may not know about maybe there's some land outside or around Harris County that may qualify for USDA. And if you're working in real estate, your clients may not want to live in the city. If they work in the city, a lot of them want to be out of the city, okay? They work downtown, they want to get away from it, okay? So in that situation is you want to make certain that you have a variety of lenders. I always tell people my best one is 5 people, 5 different lenders. Have a lender in all different areas and all different types. And when you do that, guess what ends up happening? You get a very broad range. You see what I'm saying? And you allow yourself, you make yourself more competitive. Then if somebody comes in and says, well, I'm trying to look for some property. Well, if you're using one person that is primarily just residential, guess what ends up happening? You're going to lose it because you're going to have to call around and try to find somebody. But if you already know somebody that can do land, boom, you make that phone call and you're ready to go. Okay? So one of the key things when you get your license, big thing you need to do, you need to call a bunch of lenders. Have them lenders take you out to lunch. Have them lenders take you to dinner. Okay? Go out there and get that free food, but also get that free knowledge and get that contact. Okay? Extremely important in that particular situation. Okay? All right. So that basically wraps up our class for this evening. Now what I'm going to end up doing is, if you've been noticing, in each module I've been putting a video. Now the video that we put in yesterday was Mr. Aiden's favorite. Okay, he actually loved that video. So we put it up for y'all, but it actually did have some very good information, to be honest. I know it's an older one, but it did end up in that situation, provide some very helpful, useful information. I am going to try to find the video I used to have that talked about the closing disclosure and the transference and things of that in regards to these forms right back here. I'm going to try to find this information for you as well. And I'm going to put that up for y'all to watch as well. Okay? Gives you some insight in regards to what these were and things to that nature. But again, that just gives you the information that you need. Make certain that you're aware of these things because these are going to be very important information that you have to have when you're practicing. Okay? All right, so let's go ahead and stop our recording for tonight.